The Terminator, director James Cameron's seminal sci-fi thriller about a cyborg assassin sent from the future to murder the mother of the man who would save humanity in that same future. When this film came out in 1984, nobody saw it coming. Both audiences and critics alike were shocked at the quality of its acting, pacing, visual effects, and plot. And seemingly overnight, Cameron went from a lowly crew member and set dresser for Roger Corman to one of the brightest young visionaries in the industry. This film is truly one of the all-time sci-fi masterpieces. From the phenomenal performances of its main cast, comprised of Linda Hamilton, Michael Biehn, Lance Henriksen, Paul Winfield, and of course the Austrian juggernaut himself, Arnold Schwarzenegger, playing the titular cyborg, to the tightly paced script that perfectly balances action and character beats, and the absolutely astonishing visual effects comprised of miniatures and top-notch animatronic work by artists Stan Winston and Gene Warren Jr. It's personally my favorite film of the entire franchise. Why is that? Well, it's a similar reason to why I like Alien the most out of its franchise. The dark, bleak, and ominous tone that emanates from this film really connects with me a lot. But more than that, I think this film's dark and doom-wrought atmosphere is unique among most other sci-fi films. This original Terminator film is unique among even its own franchise in that it's not really an action film, but a horror film. The source of the horror, though, is not within the film's title character. Yes, the source of the horror in the Terminator is not in fact the Terminator itself, but rather what he represents, which is time. The film throws multiple flashbacks at you of the far future war between humanity and the machine army of Skynet. It's depicted as a horrid, dirty, and hostile nightmare world with seemingly no sunlight, where humans are dwarfed by their alloy adversaries, and their resistance is held on by a thread. The idea of this doomed future is the creeping dread that looms over this film and its characters. The Terminator itself is only a tool by which to embody said idea, which is by no means a slight against Schwarzenegger's menacing performance and Stan Winston's incredible practical effects work. If there's one scene that I feel perfectly showcases this film's tone and intent, any scene that captures what the essence of the Terminator is, it's the police station shootout, which is the singular scene that this video will be breaking down. As before, I'm making this video with the presumption that this movie and its plot is still fresh in your mind. I won't be providing very much plot or character context, so if you don't want to be confused by the details I'm about to share, it might be a good idea to watch the film and have it fresh in your mind before watching the video. Now, with that disclaimer out of the way, let's begin. This scene starts with a very effective shot of the ever-so-popular character Dr. Silberman, played by Earl Bowen, leaving the police station and being momentarily distracted by the pager in his pocket, during which the Terminator himself enters through the front door and walks right past him. This is a great way to open this scene purely for the context. Silberman is shown throughout all the previous scenes denying the stories and accounts of Reese's life as a future soldier and the entire existence of Skynet and the Terminators. So having Silberman and a Terminator walk right past each other in the exact same shot is perfect visual irony. The next sequence of events is pretty ordinary. The T-800 walks up to the desk sergeant asking to see Sarah Connor. The desk sergeant asks him to wait. He says the famous line, and he walks back out. This brief moment is notable because of how nearly every shot of the Terminator is at a low angle, giving it an air of menace, and the desk sergeant is made to look tiny and pathetic in comparison. One thing I noticed about this shot is that Schwarzenegger is much closer to the camera than the actor playing the desk sergeant, using a perspective technique to contrast the size and presence of the two characters even more, known as forced perspective. After that, we get some dull insert shots of the desk sergeant doing some paperwork before the Terminator comes crashing through the front lobby of the police station in a stolen car. What's interesting to me here is that our first indication of what's about to happen is this shot, where we see the car headlights reflecting off the window of the sergeant's booth. I don't know about anyone else, but this reminds me a lot of the spotlights that you see on the HK tanks and the hovercrafts in the future war flashbacks. I think that was a deliberate visual similarity on Cameron's part, as a way of symbolizing that the hell of the future has come to the present. And this also goes back to what I was saying about the horror in this film being the very possibility that this future might become a reality. After the T-800 caves in the front of the building, he swiftly delivers cyborg death to the officers within through a lightning-fast montage of quick cuts meant to display the efficiency with which this future assassin dispatches his obstacles. We also get this cool POV shot seeing through the Terminator's infrared vision filter as he shoots an officer through a thin wall. Ironic that before he fought the Predator, Schwarzenegger himself played a sci-fi villain with a dedicated tension-building POV shot showcasing his filtered eyesight. One cool detail I really like in this shot, as you see the Terminator opening the circuit breaker, you can see his body jerking back and forth in reaction to the gunshots from the cops across the hallway. This is a simple but brilliant method of low-budget filmmaking. Cameron is saving precious budget money here by simply having Schwarzenegger jerk and twitch his body in visually sharp ways, and simply adding the gunshot sounds in post. This moment is usually something you pick up on repeat viewings, which is one of the hallmarks of truly incredible filmmaking. Upon the breaker being fried, we see various lights in the station burn out and then match cut to a pair of floodlights coming to life in the interrogation room Kyle Reese is being held in. This is such an ingenious way to transition to this part of the scene that I believe it had to be planned beforehand. The consistent pattern of dying light sources climaxed with the two floodlights coming alive is a fast and stylish way to cut to this room without any of the momentum and suspense losing their potency. After Reese incapacitates the guard, he hears gunshots a few rooms over, which is then used to cut back to the Terminator wreaking havoc across the small army of cops. Look at the way Schwarzenegger emerges from the smoke here like some kind of phantom. The framing of this shot with the low angle and the density of the smoke, to me it makes this the scariest that a Terminator's ever looked. He mercilessly sprays this whole room, pouring lethal lead into the bodies of all these hapless cops. One cop manages to get a killing shot off, only to meet his end by the T-800's shotgun. You know, when you think of famous monsters in films, what's one of the most iconic characteristics of those monsters, apart from their visual design, their framing, the actors playing them, and their roles within the story? It's sound. Whether it's the bellowing foghorn-like cry of Godzilla, the rumbling, powerful growl of Kong, the steam-like hiss or high-pitched wailing of the xenomorph, the hair-raising click of the Predator, or the ear-splitting screech of the raptors from Jurassic Park. It seems like every memorable and iconic movie monster has an equally iconic sound associated with them, except for the Terminator. Save for the mechanical sounds it makes whenever it's moving about. This moment from this scene, however, made me realize something. The Terminator does have a roar of sorts. Listen to the sound effects of its weapons. This is just a guess, but I'm willing to bet Cameron deliberately enhanced the sounds of these guns in post to make them sound way more oppressively loud and monstrous. I mean, what shotgun sounds like that? It sounds like a growling beast rather than a firearm. So after the T-800 guns down the police chief and Lance Henriksen, we get this cool little transition where we show the Terminator walking down the hall and we see a dark, ominous silhouette outside the door window to the room that Sarah's in. This is, of course, a cinematic ploy as it turns out to be Kyle Reese, come to help Sarah escape the precinct. The thing that I feel makes this little fake out moment so brilliant is the continuity it has with earlier shots. In this shot, we see the Terminator walking down the hall from right to left, and when we cut to the shot of the door, Reese's silhouette also enters the shot from the exact same direction, right to left. That sense of coherence helps immensely, and it doesn't immediately give away the fact that it's a false scare. Nor does the fact that Reese is in a silhouette here that resembles the Terminator. I mean, shadows and silhouettes of monsters are a staple visual cliche in horror movies after all. We get some insanely slick and effective cinematography as Kyle and Sarah's escape from the station is shown to us in two incredible dolly shots. We see an identical dolly shot of the Terminator swiftly strolling through the same set of rooms that Kyle and Sarah were frantically stumbling through, making the chase even more tense and nail-biting. They finally get away, narrowly avoiding death by the T-800's hands. If there's one major standout element of this scene that truly makes it memorable, it's gotta be the music. Brad Feidel's score for both Terminator movies are lauded as some of the greatest sci-fi music in history. And watching them, it's very easy to see why. The synth and keyboard heavy score for the original film contributed hugely to the popular musical aesthetic for 80s movies, alongside other films like Escape from New York and Blade Runner, which made use of similar instruments. But in my eyes, one of the things that makes a film score truly special is not just the quality of the compositions, but how said compositions are used. Which brings us back to the scene in question. What tone does the music evoke during this entire scene? For a scene where people are all being viciously gunned down in a horrifically one-sided shootout against an unstoppable literal killing machine, the music is surprisingly reserved. The synth percussion almost sounds like an eerie cyborg heartbeat as the T-800 rains death upon the entire precinct. This use of the score also contrasts with some of the earlier action sequences. The chase through the streets and the parking garage where Kyle and Sarah are evading the T-800 has the music suitably fast-paced to properly match the action. So why did Brad Fiedel go for a seemingly less fitting musical tone for this scene? The answer is simple. The film is making a pretty clear statement with this scene and how the music is scored with it. What is that statement? Well, it's the full realization of the speech that Kyle delivers to Sarah in the car in the earlier scene. This scene is meant to fully show the destructive power that a Terminator is capable of. This attack in the police station is not a battle, but a slaughter. The fast-paced and chaotic tempo of the music in the earlier chase scene was appropriate because it was an actual struggle. There was a chance of Kyle and Sarah escaping the T-800. None of the cops in this station have a chance of winning this fight. There is no struggle. To cross bullets with a Skynet machine with 80s-era weaponry is to invite death without exception. So the music is not kinetic and fast, but instead it's slow and deliberate. Brad Fiedel knew exactly what he was doing composing the music for this scene in particular, because as soon as Kyle and Sarah reunite, what happens with the score?
Sarah! Reese!
The music kicks in once more into overdrive, becoming frantic and kinetic as the two protagonists scramble to evade the malicious cyborg that hunts them. Now, it's a struggle again. There's actually a similar scene in Terminator 2 where the T-800 destroys a whole squadron of cop cars with the minigun. This scene is not the only instance where the music evolves in dynamic and interesting ways either, but I'll leave that up to the viewers to discover on their own. That's all the ground I wanted to cover in this video, folks. I'll be working on making other short-length videos of this nature, rather than the giant-sized ones like the Predator or Alien videos. So I'll be making those from time to time as well. I hope you all enjoyed the video, and you also have a great day. Also, don't be a dick to your computer. You never know what might happen in the future. Godspeed, my friend.